Judith was known in her village as a girl with a heart of gold. From a young age, she shared what little she had with everyone around her. Whether it was giving her lunch to a hungry classmate or sharing her pocket money with the less privileged, Judith always found joy in helping others. Her parents often scolded her, saying that she was too generous, but Judith couldn't help it. She believed in showing kindness wherever she could. As she grew older, Judith's generosity became more noticeable. While most of her friends were focused on their own needs, Judith was concerned about others. This, however, made her stand out in the wrong way. People began to think she was too soft or naive, unable to handle the harsh realities of life. Her friends started avoiding her, labeling her as someone who didn't fit in with the crowd. Judith's close friends, who once shared secrets and laughed with her, began to distance themselves. At first, she didn't understand why they would push her away. She thought it might be a phase, but as days turned into weeks, it became clear that her kindness had become a problem for them. They called her weak, saying that her generosity was just a way for people to take advantage of her. Judith felt heartbroken. These were the people she trusted the most, and now they were turning against her because of her good nature. But despite the pain of rejection, she held on to her values. She continued to help those in need, even if it meant standing alone. Little did she know that this rejection was only the beginning of the trials that awaited her. Judith's home, which once felt like a place of safety, soon became another source of rejection. Her parents, who had always provided for her, grew tired of her constant acts of generosity. They felt embarrassed when people in the village gossiped about how their daughter gave away so much without thinking of herself. "You are too kind for your own good, Judith," her father would say in frustration. "This world isn't for people like you." Her mother, who had always been supportive, also began to change. She worried about Judith's future, believing that her daughter would never succeed if she kept putting others before herself. Despite her parents' disapproval, Judith refused to change her ways. She couldn't understand why it was so hard for people to see the value in kindness. But as their frustration grew, so did the distance between Judith and her family. One evening, the tension in the house reached its peak. Judith had come home after giving away her pocket money to a struggling widow, and her parents were furious. "How can you keep doing this?" her father shouted. "We have told you time and time again that this world will chew you up if you keep giving everything away." Her mother tried to calm the situation, but it was no use. In a moment of anger, her father disowned her. "If you can't live the way we expect you to, then leave this house. We don't need a daughter who gives away everything." Judith was stunned. She never imagined her own family would turn their backs on her because of her generosity. With tears in her eyes, she packed her things and left the house she had always known as home. Judith found herself wandering the streets with nowhere to go. Her heart was heavy, not just from being disowned by her family but also from the loneliness that surrounded her. For the first time in her life, she was truly on her own. With no one to rely on, she had to learn how to survive without her family's support. But Judith's spirit remained strong. She found a small room to rent in a poor part of the city and decided to make the best of her situation. Even though she had little, Judith continued to help those around her. Whenever she saw someone in need, she would give whatever she could, even if it meant going without herself. Though her life was hard, her faith in doing good never wavered. Despite the challenges, Judith was determined to get an education. She knew that it was the only way she could create a better future for herself. She took on odd jobs, cleaning, washing clothes, and selling small items on the street to save money for her school fees. It wasn't easy, but Judith believed that with hard work and perseverance, she could make it through university. After many months of saving, Judith finally had enough to pay for her first semester. She enrolled in a nearby university, excited to start a new chapter in her life. Though she didn't have much, her passion for learning and her dream of making a difference in the world kept her motivated. Judith knew that education was the key to unlocking her potential and helping even more people in the future. Life at university was not without its difficulties. Judith's schedule was packed with lectures and assignments, but she still had to work long hours to pay for her fees and living expenses. While other students spent their free time socializing or attending parties, Judith could often be found working late into the night or studying by candlelight in her small room. Though she struggled to keep up, Judith never complained. She was used to doing things on her own, and her challenges only made her more determined to succeed. However, her kindness continued to set her apart. She helped her fellow students with their studies and shared her food with those who couldn't afford meals. Many didn't understand why she was so generous when she had so little, but Judith remained true to her values. After years of hard work, Judith's graduation day finally arrived. It was a moment of great pride for her. She had overcome so many obstacles to get to this point, and standing in her cap and gown felt like a huge accomplishment. Her family, however, was not there to celebrate with her. The pain of being disowned still weighed on her heart, but Judith chose to focus on the positive. She had earned her degree, and now she had the knowledge and skills to build a better life. Though her friends and family were absent, Judith was not alone. A few classmates who appreciated her kindness attended the ceremony and cheered for her as she received her diploma. Despite all she had gone through, Judith stood tall, proud of the journey that had shaped her into the strong and resilient woman she had become. With her degree in hand, Judith set out to find a job. She had high hopes of getting a position that would allow her to help others and make a difference. However, the job market was tough, and Judith found it difficult to secure employment. After months of searching, she realized that she had no choice but to return to street hawking to make ends meet. It wasn't the future she had imagined after graduating from university, but Judith accepted her situation with grace. She began selling small items on the street again, just as she had done before. But this time, she felt a sense of peace. Judith believed that everything happened for a reason, and she trusted that something better was on the horizon. Back on the streets, Judith found herself in a familiar but challenging environment. The long hours in the hot sun and constant walking left her exhausted each day. She sold fruit, snacks, and small household items, barely making enough to cover her rent and food. Yet, even in her hardship, Judith's generous heart remained unchanged. She often gave extra fruit to mothers with hungry children or reduced prices for the elderly, despite knowing it would leave her with little profit. As days turned into weeks, Judith's situation seemed bleak. Other street hawkers laughed at her, telling her she would never get ahead by giving so much away. But Judith had an unwavering belief that her kindness would eventually bring her blessings. She clung to her faith, trusting that God had a bigger plan for her life, even if she couldn't see it yet. One day, while hawking in her usual spot, a well-dressed man approached Judith's stall. He had been watching her from a distance for several days, noticing how she treated everyone with kindness and compassion, even though she clearly had little for herself. "Why do you give away so much when you barely have anything?" the man asked curiously. Judith smiled, her face bright despite the weariness in her eyes. "It's not about how much I have," she replied. "It's about what I can do for others. I believe that helping people, no matter how small, is a way to honor God." The man was moved by her words and decided to help. "I can see that your heart is pure," he said. "I want to help you. Come by my office tomorrow, and we'll see what we can do." Judith was surprised but thankful. She didn't know who the man was or what he intended, but she saw this as a sign that her faith and kindness were beginning to pay off. The next day, Judith visited the address the man had given her. To her shock, it was an impressive building in the business district. She nervously walked inside, wondering if she had made a mistake. But when she met the man in his office, she quickly realized that he was the owner of a large company. "I've been looking for someone like you, Judith," the man said, gesturing for her to sit. "Your kindness and determination are qualities that many people lack. I'd like to offer you a job here at my company, where you can help others on a larger scale. We need someone who cares deeply about the community and knows how to make a real difference." Judith could hardly believe her ears. This was the opportunity she had been praying for. With tears in her eyes, she accepted the offer, knowing that this was the moment her life was about to change. She had gone from being a disowned street hawker to being recognized for her generosity and offered a chance to fulfill her dreams. Judith's first day at the company was filled with excitement and nerves. She had never worked in an office before, and everything felt new and overwhelming. But the man who hired her, Mr. Adewale, had faith in her abilities. He placed her in charge of a project aimed at helping underprivileged communities, something that was close to Judith's heart. As she settled into her new role, Judith found joy in using her skills and knowledge to make a difference. She organized programs to support small businesses, provided food for the needy, and worked on educational initiatives for children. Her efforts were appreciated by both her colleagues and the people in the communities she helped. Though her life had drastically changed, Judith remained humble. She never forgot the struggles she had endured and the lessons she had learned along the way. She continued to give selflessly, even as her own circumstances improved. As Judith's project gained success, not everyone in the company was pleased with her achievements. Some employees, jealous of the attention she received from Mr. Adewale, began to spread rumors about her. They whispered that she was only in her position because of favoritism and questioned whether she truly deserved the role. At first, the rumors hurt Judith deeply. After all, she had worked hard to earn her place and had always acted with integrity. But she quickly reminded herself that this was just another test of her faith. Instead of confronting the gossipers, Judith chose to rise above the negativity. She focused on her work, letting her actions speak for themselves. Her dedication and results soon silenced her critics. The more Judith accomplished, the more people began to see that she was not just kind but also highly capable. Her project expanded, touching even more lives, and the company began to recognize the positive impact of her leadership. As Judith's project flourished, her life changed dramatically. She was now earning a comfortable salary, had moved out of a small room into a modest apartment, and no longer worried about money as she once did. But with her new success came new challenges. Judith began to notice how easy it was for people in her position to become consumed by wealth and power. One day, she received an offer from a wealthy businessman who wanted her to partner with him on a new venture. On the surface, the deal seemed like a golden opportunity, but something felt wrong. The businessman was known for exploiting vulnerable communities, and Judith knew that aligning herself with him would compromise her values. "This is how you climb higher in this world," the man said, smiling confidently. "You have to take advantage of every opportunity." But Judith refused. She had worked too hard and sacrificed too much to fall into the trap of greed. "I appreciate the offer," she said, "but I cannot betray the people I've spent my life trying to help." Her decision to turn down the lucrative deal surprised many, but it reaffirmed Judith's commitment to doing what was right, no matter the cost. Turning down the businessman's offer was just the beginning. Soon after, Judith faced another moral dilemma. A corrupt politician approached her, offering to fund her community project on the condition that she endorsed him publicly. The politician's reputation was tarnished by scandals, and Judith knew that associating with him would destroy the trust she had built with the people. "It's just a small favor," he said, trying to convince her. "Think of how much good you could do with my financial support." Judith was tempted. She knew the funding could transform her project, expanding its reach to help thousands more people. But accepting dirty money would mean compromising her principles. In the end, Judith stood firm. "I cannot help my people by betraying them," she replied calmly. Her refusal cost her the funding, and for a moment, it seemed like her project would suffer. But Judith's reputation for honesty and integrity grew stronger. People in the community respected her even more for standing her ground, and soon, other donors, ones who shared her values, came forward to support her work. As Judith continued her work, she encountered many people who questioned her methods. Some believed that her generosity was making people too dependent on handouts, while others criticized her for not doing enough. One day, a prominent figure in the community publicly challenged her during a meeting. "You're not helping people," he said coldly. "You're only making them weaker by giving them everything." Judith, though hurt by the accusation, calmly explained her approach. "I don't believe in just giving people what they need for today. I'm investing in their future. I'm teaching them skills, providing education, and helping them build sustainable livelihoods. I want to empower them, not just provide temporary relief." Her words struck a chord with many in the audience. Judith had always believed that kindness was not about giving blindly, but about giving thoughtfully, with the goal of helping people rise out of their struggles. While some still disagreed, most came to see that Judith's generosity had depth and wisdom behind it. Months passed, and Judith's work continued to impact lives. One afternoon, as she was organizing a community outreach event, she was approached by someone she never expected to see, her father. He looked older and more tired than she remembered, and his expression was full of regret. "Judith, I'm sorry," he said softly, his voice trembling. "I shouldn't have disowned you. I was wrong." Judith's heart raced. She had waited years for this moment, but now that it was here, she wasn't sure how to feel. The pain of her family's rejection still lingered, but she also felt a deep sense of compassion for her father. After a long silence, Judith took a deep breath. "I forgive you, Papa," she said gently. "I never stopped loving you." Her father, overcome with emotion, hugged her tightly. It was a moment of healing for both of them. Judith had always believed in the power of forgiveness, and this was a reminder that even the deepest wounds could heal with time and grace. With her father's apology, Judith slowly began to reconnect with her family. Her mother, too, expressed remorse for pushing her away. "We didn't understand you, Judith," her mother admitted. "We were so focused on the ways of this world that we couldn't see the goodness in your heart." Judith welcomed her family back into her life, but she was careful not to lose herself in the process. She helped them where she could, offering financial support and advice, but she made sure they understood that her generosity came from a place of love, not obligation. "I will always help you," she told them, "but I won't let anyone take advantage of my kindness." This boundary helped Judith maintain a healthy relationship with her family while staying true to her values. For the first time, her parents began to see the strength in Judith's generosity and admired her for the woman she had become. As Judith's success grew, she decided to share her journey with others. She began giving talks in schools, churches, and community centers, teaching people the importance of kindness, integrity, and resilience. "I didn't have much," she would say, "but I gave what I could. And in the end, it was my kindness that opened doors for me." Never underestimate the power of doing good. Her story inspired many, particularly the youth who looked up to her as a role model. Judith encouraged them to focus on education, to work hard, and to never lose sight of their values, even when the world tried to push them in the wrong direction. Her message was simple: success was not just about what you earned, but about how you used it to uplift others. Judith's growing influence in the community did not go unnoticed. With her increasing fame and the success of her project, people in power began to see her as a potential threat to their control. One day, a local politician approached Judith with an offer. He wanted to use her popularity to gain support for his upcoming election, promising her substantial funding for her project in return for her endorsement. At first, the offer seemed tempting. With more funds, Judith could expand her programs and help even more people. But as she listened to the politician's speech, she realized the price she would have to pay. Aligning with a corrupt figure would destroy the trust she had worked so hard to build within the community. She politely declined, stating, "I cannot support what I don't believe in, even if it means losing an opportunity. My work is not for sale." The politician was furious, but Judith remained unshaken. She had always lived by her principles, and she wasn't about to abandon them for money or influence. After rejecting the politician's offer, Judith became the target of a smear campaign. Posters accusing her of hypocrisy and hidden agendas were plastered around the community. Some people began to doubt her, wondering if there was truth in the allegations. It was a difficult time for Judith, as the people she had helped the most now questioned her integrity. Instead of retaliating, Judith took a different approach. She remained calm and continued her work, allowing her actions to speak louder than words. She believed that the truth would eventually come out, and that she would be vindicated if she stayed true to her mission. Soon, the community realized that the smear campaign was a ploy to discredit Judith. Her unwavering dedication to helping others restored their faith in her, and many people came forward to apologize for doubting her. Through this experience, Judith learned the importance of patience and the power of staying grounded in the face of adversity. During the height of the smear campaign, Judith received a surprise visit from someone who had once been her harshest critic, the businessman she had previously refused to partner with. He had heard about the attempts to ruin her reputation and had come to offer his support. "I didn't understand you before," he admitted. "But seeing how you've handled all this, I realize that you're different. I respect that." He offered to help clear her name and provide resources for her project without any strings attached. Judith was hesitant at first, remembering their past encounter. But after much thought, she accepted his offer. This time, it wasn't about profit or personal gain. The businessman had been humbled by Judith's integrity and genuinely wanted to support her cause. This partnership turned out to be a turning point for Judith's project. With the businessman's help, she was able to expand her efforts, bringing education, healthcare, and sustainable business opportunities to more communities than ever before. The once skeptical businessman became one of her biggest allies, using his influence to help rather than exploit. Judith's life had always been about giving, but as her project grew, she realized she needed to take better care of herself too. The demands of her work had taken a toll on her health, and she had neglected her own well-being for far too long. Her body finally gave her a warning one day when she collapsed from exhaustion during a community event. Doctors advised her to slow down and make time for rest, but Judith struggled with the idea of stepping back from her work. She had dedicated her life to helping others, and the thought of taking a break felt like she was letting people down. However, after some reflection, Judith realized that she couldn't continue to give if she didn't take care of herself first. She decided to delegate more responsibilities to her trusted team, allowing her to focus on strategic planning and self-care. This decision not only improved her health but also strengthened her organization by empowering others to take on leadership roles. Judith's lesson was clear: self-care is not selfish, it's essential for sustaining a life of service. As Judith continued her work, a series of strange but beautiful events began to unfold. One morning, as she was walking to her office, she saw a young woman struggling to carry a heavy load of goods. Without thinking twice, Judith rushed over to help, lifting some of the weight from the woman's hands. As they talked, Judith learned that the woman, Chika, was trying to support her family after her husband's sudden death. Touched by her story, Judith offered Chika a job in her organization. In just a few months, Chika's life was transformed. She was able to provide for her children and even started a small side business. Chika often told people that Judith was her angel sent by God. One day, out of gratitude, Chika invited Judith to her church for a special service. During the service, the pastor singled out Judith, speaking of a woman in the congregation who had been chosen by God to uplift others. He didn't mention her name, but everyone knew who he was talking about. It was a moment of deep reflection for Judith. Her faith had guided her through so much, and now it seemed as though her actions were being recognized on a spiritual level. As Judith's success continued to grow, she felt a pull to return to her village, the place where she had been rejected, disowned, and cast aside. Though it had been years since she left, Judith had never forgotten the people there. Despite the pain they had caused her, she still wanted to help them. With her organization now flourishing, Judith launched a new project aimed at rural development, starting with her own village. She built a community center, provided clean water, and set up educational programs for children and adults. Some of the people who had once mocked her now came to her for help. They were ashamed of how they had treated her, but Judith harbored no bitterness. Instead, she welcomed them with open arms, showing them the same kindness she had always extended. Her return to the village was a powerful statement of forgiveness and resilience. Judith's story became a living testimony that true strength comes from remaining kind, even when faced with rejection. Judith's return to her village brought back many painful memories. As she walked through the streets where she had once hoped and faced rejection, she encountered familiar faces, people who had ridiculed her and cast her out when she needed them most. But something unexpected happened. Many of those same people approached her with tears in their eyes, asking for her forgiveness. One day, a woman named Ezin, who had been one of the ringleaders in mocking Judith, came forward. "Judith," she began, her voice shaking, "I am ashamed of how we treated you. We didn't understand your kindness. Please, forgive me." Judith looked at Ezin, her heart filled with compassion. "I forgave you a long time ago," she replied softly. "My life has taught me that holding on to bitterness only keeps you stuck in the past. I've moved forward, and I hope you can too." Ezin was overwhelmed with gratitude. In that moment, the power of forgiveness was clear to everyone around them. Judith's decision to let go of past had allowed her to heal and become stronger. Her example showed the village that forgiveness wasn't just for the person who had wronged her, it was also for her own peace and freedom. Judith's efforts in her village caught the attention of both local and international organizations. One day, she received a letter inviting her to speak at a global summit on community development and social impact. The event was a prestigious one, attended by leaders, philanthropists, and changemakers from all over the world. Standing before such an audience, Judith shared her story, the rejection, the struggles, and how her unwavering faith and kindness had transformed not only her life but the lives of countless others. "I was once a street hawker, disowned by my family and rejected by my friends," she said, her voice steady but emotional. "But I didn't let that stop me. I continued to give even when I had nothing. And through that, I found favor." Her speech was met with a standing ovation. People from all walks of life were inspired by her journey. Judith had become more than just a local hero, she was now a global symbol of resilience, integrity, and the power of kindness. Her name became synonymous with positive change, and many sought her advice on how to replicate her success in their own communities. With fame, however, came new challenges. The media began to focus on Judith's every move, and not all of their attention was positive. Journalists and bloggers speculated about her personal life, and some even tried to dig up scandals, hoping to tarnish her reputation. Judith, who had always been a private person, found this scrutiny difficult to handle. At times, she felt overwhelmed by the pressure of being in the spotlight. There were moments when she longed for the simpler days, when her work was done quietly without the eyes of the world watching. But Judith knew that this was part of the journey. She had been given a platform, and she was determined to use it wisely. She reminded herself that her purpose hadn't changed. Whether she was helping a single person on the street or speaking to an audience of thousands, her mission remained the same: to uplift others through kindness and compassion. With that clarity, Judith continued to navigate the complexities of her newfound fame, always staying true to the values that had guided her from the beginning. Years later, Judith's organization had grown into a powerful force for good, with branches in several countries. Her work had impacted the lives of millions, providing education, healthcare, and economic opportunities to underserved communities. But despite her incredible success, Judith never lost her humility. One day, while visiting a new project site, a young girl approached her. The girl's eyes were wide with admiration as she shyly handed Judith a small handmade bracelet. "Thank you for helping people like me," the girl said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I want to be just like you when I grow up." Judith knelt down, her heart full of emotion. She placed the bracelet on her wrist and smiled at the girl. "You already are like me," she said gently. "And one day, you'll help even more people than I ever could." Judith knew that her legacy wasn't just in the buildings she had helped construct or the programs she had funded. It was in the lives she had touched and the people she had inspired. Her story was a testament to the power of generosity, resilience, and unwavering faith. And though she had faced countless obstacles along the way, Judith's journey was proof that even in a world that can be harsh and unforgiving, a kind heart can create lasting change. As Judith looked out over the project site, watching the children play and the community thrive, she knew that God's favor had truly shined on her. Her life had come full circle, and the girl who had once been disowned and rejected had become a beacon of hope for others. And that, she thought with a smile, was the greatest blessing of all.